Hey guys, back with another video, and today we are finally doing my review of the Dinosaur. I know it's been a month since it came out, so I'm a bit late to the party. Regardless, it's still something I want to talk about. This documentary, of course, was made by the same people who made Life on Our Planet. I myself have never actually watched this documentary, but from what I heard, it's not very good. There was a ton of problems with that documentary, and I really do not have the time to talk about that right now. Because of this, I didn't really have high expectations for this documentary, but perhaps I am wrong. Did the dinosaur turn out to be better than I expected? Well, let's see. Oh, and keep in mind this video is mostly my opinion. So the best way I can describe this documentary is that it's basically Netflix's answer to Walking with Dinosaurs. It has a very similar format, exploring the history of their evolution all up until the KPG. However, it's less Walking with Dinosaurs and more Walking with Monsters. Instead of each individual episode being dedicated to a specific time period or area, we go from one point in time to further in time and further in time in the same episode. Of course, I don't have anything against this format of documentary. I just want you to know that if you're going to watch this, do not expect this to be exactly like Walking with Dinosaurs. But what I do find interesting is that we are shown what might have been the very ancestor of the dinosaur group in the form of Marsuchus. Exploring the ancestry of dinosaurs in the form of their early relatives is something I don't think was ever done in a documentary before. However, they are depicted with feathers, which I have mixed opinions on. How deep feathers go in the dinosaur family tree still seems to be quite debated. So I feel like it was a bit of a risky move to slap feathers on Marsuchus, but who knows, perhaps I could be wrong. Regardless, I think it looks cool, but I just wanted to point that out. This episode does show us this absolutely horrendous looking Tanystropheus. Yeah, so the creature designs are a bit of a mixed bag. Some of them are pitch perfect, some of them are weird, and some of them they make you question if they actually done research in the first place. Tanystropheus is sadly one of those. I think the problem here is pretty obvious. It's that damn dorsal fin on the back of its neck. As far as I know, there is no fossil evidence to support this. Neither is it even likely that it might have had this in the first place. If anything, it makes it look more like a fantasy creature than a real animal. Keep in mind, this is a documentary, not a movie, so inaccurate designs are not excusable. The Rhynchosaurs were a nice addition though. It's always nice to see a lesser known creature get depicted in paleo media. Another comparison with Walking with Monsters is that it does the evolutionary arms race type thing, you know, where one group of animals outcompetes the other and then those group of animals get outcompeted and so on and so on. That's basically what they're doing here. It's a pretty overused way of interpreting evolution, and I'm assuming a lot of people are tired of it. Well, to be fair, the whole point of the documentary is pretty much the story of the dinosaurs, so I guess it makes sense. And let's be honest, not everything needs to be prehistoric planet. However, I do have a problem with how it's presented. Basically, they're saying the dinosaurs will eventually outcompete the reptiles, even though dinosaurs themselves are reptiles. I think they should be a little bit more specific with their wording, saying the other reptiles and not reptiles in general, because dinosaurs are also reptiles, but they outcompeted the other reptiles is what they should have said. I won't be talking a lot about the mass extinction events because I think they're all very well represented, but I will admit I actually learned something new in the form of the Carnian Pluvial event. For those of you who don't know, the Carnian Pluvial event is a lesser-known extinction event caused by volcanic activity creating extreme humid temperatures and heavy rainfall. This is something I never actually heard about, so it's nice that I learned something new from this documentary. This is important as it helped the dinosaurs to diversify and fill in niches, since other reptiles like the Rhynchosaurs went extinct, as shown in the documentary. Later on, we are introduced to the very first pterosaurs, which are never actually name-dropped. You know, sometimes I really hate when documentaries do this. Is it really that hard to name-drop what species we are looking at? It's not as problematic as Prehistoric Planet Season 3, but it's still a problem overall. This specific scene introduces us to Liliensternus, an early theropod. To me, this is a really weird looking design. Like, for one, the neck, it's pretty long and chubby. It just looks weird. Personally, I really do not like how they slapped Dilophosaurus crests on this guy. This is, of course, speculation, as the skull of Liliensternus is quite fragmentary, so we don't have a lot of remains, so it's often depicted with a Dilophosaurus crest sometimes. This is much more likely and far less horrendous than the dorsal fins on the Tanystropheus, but regardless, I just think it makes Liliensternus much more generic, like a Dilophosaurus wannabe. Taking a distinct feature from one dinosaur and slapping it on another really only turns them into copycats and not letting them actually stand out on their own. Well, to be fair, Dracovenator is a thing, so the double crests aren't really a Dilophosaurus exclusive thing anymore, but it's just something I want to point out regardless. This episode ends with the end Triassic extinction as it teases the beginning of the Jurassic period, which episode 2 is fully dedicated to. Episode 2 opens with a scene of a Massospondylus being outclassed by a Volcanodon, basically representing how true sauropods replaced basal sauropods. I guess it's interesting, but the way it's represented makes it seem like Volcanodon just popped out of nowhere. Obviously, it takes millions and millions of years for a creature to evolve rather than just suddenly popping into existence. Also, I'm pretty sure that most sauropodomorphs evolved into true sauropods. I could be wrong about this, but I just wanted to point that out. We also get to see Heterodontosaurus, which interestingly has cheek pouches, shoving bits of pine cones in its mouth like a modern-day rodent. Of course, this is speculation, but I kind of thought it was a fun idea. There's also a scene with Dilophosaurus, which is great because Dilophosaurus is often never really used in documentaries. It's also probably one of my favorite scenes for the documentary, starting out as this sort of like tension, something scary in the distance, making calls, as the female Dilophosaurus walks towards it, only for us to get spooked by the male Dilophosaurus, only for it to turn out he's just looking for a mate. I thought it was a really well done scene. It was really good. I forgot to mention this in the pterosaur scene, but it's always really nice to have dinosaurs do stuff besides killing each other. You know, it makes them feel more like real animals rather than, monsters that just kill everything. We are also shown a Cineraptor, which seems to have osteoderms. It's not as bad as the Allosaurus, we'll talk about that guy later, but it's still not a good design choice for a documentary. To me at least, it resembles more like those bumpy, spiky skin you see on most lizard species rather than osteoderms. And it's not like every theropod had smooth baby skin like scales. For example, there is fossil evidence for skin impressions on Carnotaurus. It is now believed that Carnotaurus had a bunch of bump-like scales throughout the body. Also, this study was published back in 2021, and Prehistoric Planet was released back in 2022, so yeah, not everything can be truly perfect. Putting that aside, if these are supposed to be scales and not osteoderms, perhaps it's not impossible that Cineraptor might have looked like this. There's no fossil evidence for this so far, but who knows? I don't really have much to say on Anchiornis. It's perfect. It does get taken down by a pterosaur, symbolizing the competition for the skies. As we move forward to the late Jurassic, we have the Stegosaurus. There are a bit of things off with this design, but I think the bigger elephant in the room has to be the plates. They have this sort of interesting texture pattern thing going on. It's a unique idea, don't get me wrong, but I'm not really a fan of it. However, I much prefer this over the Allosaurus. They didn't even try. They didn't even try. For some stupid reason, they decided to reuse the same design from Life on Our Planet. Instead of making a newer, more accurate model, they just reused this one? Really? Judging by the color patterns, they clearly just want to recreate the Jurassic World Allosaurus for some reason. Guys, we're making a documentary, not a movie. Like, what are we doing? And it also has osteoderms. Unlike Sinraptor, these look much more like osteoderms than scales. Allosaurus did not have osteoderms. Why did they? You know what, fine. If Prehistoric Planet did it, I guess they're allowed to do it too, I guess. You know what, no, that's not an excuse. That really is an excuse. Obviously, this looks nothing like an actual Allosaurus, and I have no idea what kind of stuff they were on to think that recreating the Jurassic World Allosaurus was an acceptable decision. What I will give praise to is there is a scene where one of the Allosauruses gets nearly killed by a Stegosaurus, only to be finished off by the other Allosaurus. It's refreshing to see an example of dinosaur cannibalism that isn't Majungasaurus, and there wasn't any Ceratosauruses harmed in the process. The next episode moves on to the early Cretaceous, where we are introduced to the Eutyrannus. Out of all the creature designs in this documentary, the Eutyrannus is probably one of my personal favorites. I always had a bit of a soft spot for Eutyrannus. Excluding T-Rex, that's probably another one of my favorite Tyrannosaur species. This is perhaps the very first time Eutyrannus has ever been depicted in a documentary, and I definitely think they did it justice. Moving on, we are also introduced to Guaidraco, which for the most part looks pretty good. We are also shown Longipteryx, which also looks pretty good. This scene is basically meant to represent the competition for the skies as we watch the birds fight back against the pterosaurs. There was also an unnamed Ankylosaur species, which is most likely a nodosaur of some type, which is seen swimming. Yeah, they most definitely did not submerge underwater like they did in the show, because, you know, ankylosaurs are heavily armored, which makes them very heavy. Point being is that they were definitely not built for a semi-aquatic lifestyle like in the documentary. The Hatseg Island segment was also another one of my favorite scenes from the documentary. Basically, there is a small group of Magyarosaurus trying to escape a Hatzegopteryx. Combined with the foggy environment, it really shows how terrifying Asdarchids really were. I also quite like the Hatzegopteryx design. It has a sort of eerie, unsettling appearance to it. It also has some soft tissue surrounding the head and crest, which kind of reminds me of a turkey almost, but not exactly. It adds to the unsettling appearance, and it's also some interesting speculation as well. Definitely another one of my favorites. And of course, there is the Spinosaurus. The Spinosaurus on its own looks pretty good. It is shown swimming, which is a debated topic on its own, so I'm not going to go too deep into that. But what I will mention is that they state that it is bigger than T-Rex. I'm assuming you have already heard a ton of people point this out, but in science, size is determined by mass. Now, Spinosaurus was believed to be longer and taller than T-Rex, but T-Rex had more mass, so therefore it is technically bigger. However, I do find the hunting method shown to be very interesting. Basically, it sets a trap by catching a smaller fish and using it to attract larger fish like sharks. It's a fun bit of speculation. and I thought it was a really good scene. However, it is claimed by the narrator that with the Spinosaurus, dinosaurs are now starting to conquer the waters and oceans. Yeah, this type of stuff gets pretty repetitive, and technically they did not, because Spinosaurus went extinct with no descendants afterwards, and dinosaurs haven't really touched the water since. Well, non-avian dinosaurs at least. Okay, fine, maybe there were a few of them, but they never really conquered the oceans like the narrator says. Speaking of which, we move on to the last episode, where the first creature we are introduced to is the Hesperornis. It has a good design overall. I like the patterns and coloration. Definitely another one of my favorites. It is seen hunting underwater, only to get chased by a Mosasaurus. It manages to escape onto land, but the Mosasaurus jumps out of the water because, of course it does. This isn't really a criticism, but I wasn't really surprised that the Mosasaurus just cheats by jumping out of the water to catch the Hesperornis. Later we are shown some unnamed hadrosaurs, possibly Edmontosaurus. Moving on, we end at the late Cretaceous. You know, I completely forgot to talk about the Pachycephalosauruses from the beginning, but I guess I'll talk about them now. The design is fine. I don't really have anything to say about it. A younger male tries to take the females from the older male, and, you know, they have the classic Pachycephalosaurus headbutt. As the older male is about to lose, the younger male tries to do a finishing blow, but before he had the chance to do so, a Tyrannosaurus comes out of nowhere and eats him. It was honestly something I did not expect to happen. It was a fun little twist. Later on, we have a fight scene with an Ankylosaurus and a Tyrannosaurus. It's done in the traditional method, so I don't really have much to say about that. The Ankylosaurus ends up fending off the T-Rex, only for the Rex to do one final surprise attack and just simply flip it over. Does anyone else miss the days back when Ankylosaurus was treated as an unstoppable tank? No? Just me? The mother Tyrannosaurus brings back the Ankylosaurus carcass to her babies. The baby Tyrannosaurs actually look pretty interesting. I definitely think they do stand out from other baby Tyrannosaur depictions. As for the adult Tyrannosaurus Rex, it's fine, I guess. It doesn't really look much like Tyrannosaur depictions that we're used to nowadays, but I guess it's an improvement over the life on their planet design. Traditionally, we end with the KPG mass extinction, ending the dinosaurs in a dramatic way, as this documentary often does. But for the KPG, it makes more sense. And that was Netflix The Dinosaur. There are, of course, plenty of things I might have left out, but as for my final thoughts, I say it's a pretty decent documentary. Don't get me wrong, it's far from perfect, there are a ton of flaws, but it definitely feels like they put in much more effort into this than life on our planet. If you want a more accurate dinosaur documentary, you're probably better off watching Prehistoric Planet. But if you're looking for a simple but entertaining dinosaur documentary, this might be for you. If you guys enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If there's anything you want to share in the comments down below. If there's any mistakes you want to point out, please let me know. And without further ado, have a good rest of your day.